So, Christian, thank you for being here today. Adventus has
Hi.
been quite a journey. Would you like to introduce yourself to the viewers?
My name is Christian Kargl-Simard. I'm a mining professional, now unemployed after the sale of Adventus to Silvercorp. Adventus is a company I started in December 2016, and the sale to Silvercorp closed on July 31st, 2024.
Awesome. And so let's start talking about the acquisition with Silvercorp. So when we last spoke, you lacked about 60 million US to start construction at Kurpamba. You mentioned stage gating construction, securing 30 million, start mobilized, and start the early works and the more easier lighter, less capital intensive parts of construction, and then secure the other 30 million at the end of the road. So some of your financing routes were selling Condor. You talked about increasing debt, receiving a strategic investment from a larger mining company, and mergers and acquisitions. So were that other alternatives seriously on the table, or was selling to a producer always sort of the main route?
No, there was a proposal on the table to substantially increase our debt, our senior debt. The terms came in, though, more expensive than our existing Trafigura facility. And ultimately, in any route, we needed to have more equity. And then it becomes a NAV per share calculation. Ideally, that 60 million would have been equity, or would be equity. Condor, there just wasn't enough time to advance that and find a partner. So all roads led to M&A in the end, and M&A with a group that had a balance sheet of ideally a minimum of 60 million of cash available for construction.
At what point did it become clear that M&A was the best option?
At the end of February, so about 1 month into the process, it became clear, and also the most interested parties within the mix were all M&A related.
So then, could you just add some more color about the strategic review process? I mean, roughly how many producing mining companies expressed interest, and were the most parties the same as in your previous strategic review process when you last year when you ultimately merged with Luminex Resources?
Generally the same parties as past processes. We had kept the market fairly well abreast over the years. So it wasn't really a start from scratch type process for most groups. The fact that we had the environmental permit in place did bring in a few new ones, and those that we had solicited in the past, some of them showed more interest because we had the environmental permit. In the end, over the multiple rounds of solicitation, we had solicited close to 100 groups, over 30 NDAs. And as people could see from our circular, there were 3 proposals, 3 bids for the company, which Silvercorp was the winning bidder. So very fulsome. It was not like an organized process with stage gates. We wanted to get on with it, and the first group that gave us a reasonable proposal would probably win it. And that was Silvercorp in the end. We did have 2 proposals before Silvercorp, but they all basically came in around the same time. We had a sense of what each group was willing to pay, and we felt Silvercorp was maybe the best group and the group that could pay the most for the business.
So the other 2 bids, were those both sort of larger producers, call it, I don't know, or were there more, or what else, any of them merger of equal proposal?
One of them was a merger of equal, so no premium transaction, all share transaction. Another one was a larger producer with a combination of cash and shares. And of course, Silvercorp is Silvercorp, but probably comparable to the other in size to the other producer.
Did any party express interest in sort of, well, of course, now they didn't propose a competing bid, but if you would have prolonged or extended the period, do you think that there would have been any interest from any other company that perhaps wasn't so advanced in their due diligence process on Kurpamba?
It's possible. Silvercorp moved very quickly, as you can see in the circular, and they gave a very strong proposal with the placement and the speed at which they put it together. at the terms, and also they were a very good fit for the business. So it would have been difficult for us, or it was impossible for us to wait for any other groups. If we had waited another month, I suspect we could have gotten another proposal. But because of the very strong proposal from Silvercorp, I wasn't too surprised that there wasn't a superior proposal.
The increase in silver price has sure, and also the sort of doubling of Silvercorp share price has surely helped that.
Yeah, that's true as well. Like during the period between announcement and close, I think Silvercorp's implied price for Adventus was close to 60 cents on one of the days because of the strength in the silver price, and in particular in China.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say we knew that was going to happen, but we are bullish on silver in China, and Silvercorp are very good producers in the country and have a good path for growth as well. So the long-term thesis is that Silvercorp will win with that model in China and with demand for silver, and on its own, without our assets, has a chance to, I think, get to $10 plus per share, which it has been historically.
And so then, could you explain the full rationale for the merger with Silvercorp?
Well, the biggest synergy, you could call it, is their balance sheet, sitting with over $300 million US of cash and investments. That's more than enough money to advance El Domo into commercial production, but also to advance our Condor project, which they think quite highly of. I think there's a neat smaller project within Condor that Silvercorp is very well suited to advance. What we learned as well during the process, a part of our team went to China with Silvercorp's CEO to meet with manufacturers of equipment and EPCM contractors, and the markup that Western world service providers have on equipment and services is crazy. When you think about most of the equipment is probably manufactured in China, and if you go directly to the source, you're going to save a lot of money. So I think Silvercorp is very strong in terms of their connections in China and their ability to procure services and equipment, and that will be very positive for the project and probably reduce the capital cost substantially from where our internal control budget was. So I think that's a huge strength for Silvercorp, and I think Silvercorp has some good connections within Ecuador that will help streamline contracting as well. I think the fact Silvercorp likes both Curipamba and Condor, wants to move both forward is a positive. Most other companies were just focused on Curipamba, and I think the value proposition of the company is very good. I just talked about the potential for silver re-rating in China, their business in China re-rating through growth opportunities. But they are one of the cheapest silver producers, trading more like 0.6 times PNAV rather than some of the others over 1 time. So I like the paper. I think there's limited downside with Silvercorp.
So, 2 of your largest shareholders are royalty and streaming companies, Altus Minerals and Wheaton. Their primary interest is, of course, as they have royalty and streaming on Curipamba, to get it built as soon as possible. And then you also have Rossby, your large shareholder, who's exiting junior investments besides Lumina. Would you say that you in any way were sort of pushed by your major shareholders to a deal instead of hunkering down and trying to secure financing for Curipamba on your own?
Not at all. No, the path we took was driven by our management team and ultimately I think our very strong board. And what we did was prudent. Single asset developers rarely build their mines, largely because of their equity cost of capital. M&A makes sense in the mining business. It doesn't make sense to have 10 single asset developers. It makes sense to consolidate and build up producers who over time improve their multiples. It was a no-brainer for us to do M&A. Those parties are very trusting in our management and board. Ultimately, they would like to have El Domo into production as quickly as possible, but so did we. So I think we were aligned in terms of the strategy and where we ended up.
Do you even think it would have been possible, both socially with your other stakeholders on the ground, and also company-wise, to sort of hunker down, wait for a better market while trying to sort of obtain financing on your own?
Well, for those that had that thesis, that was never Adventus's thesis. So there was a mismatch there. We kept on pushing the development of our project through very difficult markets because we knew this project was going to be economic at any part of the cycle, and we wanted to be in production as quickly as possible. For us to then stop after receiving our environmental permit made no sense, especially because our communities stepped up in late 2023 to vote 98% in support to build their mine, and then you hunker down. That doesn't make any sense. So our strategy was to be the next copper mine to be built globally. It was always the same strategy throughout, and our communities have been waiting for a very long time to build this mine, and for us to stop would probably have been suicide within Ecuador and was not consistent with the message.
How many shares of Adventus do you hold?
Several million shares. It's my largest part of my net worth.
Well, that was my second question. How much of your net worth was approximately allocated toward Adventus? But if it's your
Half.
Okay, that's great. But so then, well, I mean, always when there's a transaction or some sort of a sale of a company, this questions comes up. What's your and also the board sort of severance pay in the event of a takeover?
Yeah, change of control. It's public. It's 1.2 million Canadian.
Okay, so in other words, it's smaller than your position in Adventus.
Yes.
Yes, good.
And you got to apply 54% tax to that as well.
The acquisition with Silvercorp had some twists and turns given the court case against Kargl-Simard and Silvercorp's deferral a couple of weeks. Could you add some color to that?
Yeah, in early June, an NGO filed a lawsuit against the Ministry of Environment. I would say nitpicking certain aspects of the public consultation process that occurred last year in the second part of 2023. I think they had around 9 allegations, really from a human rights perspective. We were not surprised by the suit. We'd probably say we'd anticipated something like this would occur, but this is why the government in the end completed a consultation process way above the Ecuadorian requirements. They went to international standards. And I think that all came out through the trial that occurred in July that the communities were watching on the big screen. And I think that showed very well and showed and it built trust within our communities. For Silvercorp, of course, they're fairly new in Ecuador, and they had to properly analyze this potential lawsuit and the potential effects in the project. In the end, they took another 3.5 weeks to close, and they waited to see the outcome of the trial, and that gave them comfort to close the transaction. It was very stressful for us. It was in some people's words an unprecedented period of time, but in the end, I chalk it up to a business decision that they made and something they had to analyze. And I'm sure it wasn't easy for them either. But the outcome of the court case was very clear. And our path forward now this morning, the project received its final exploitation license, was fully permitted for construction. I think after everything analyzed, they came together and they came up with the right decision, and a decision we were very pleased with, and we're very happy working with Silvercorp going forward. And we think they're the best group to build this mine.
The acquisition is complete. How long will you be remaining as an advisor to Adventus, and how much time will you be allocating toward that?
The discussion is still ongoing with Silvercorp. I've offered my services for whatever they need to help with a smooth transition. To be honest, there's little that I provide from an Ecuadorian or construction perspective at this point. Scott and the team in Ecuador are the ones tasked with the build. But certainly I can provide some advice here over the next while. I do not expect it to be super long-term nor full-time, but I'm a significant shareholder of Silvercorp now, so I want the best for the company going forward.
And so Adventus sold for give or take 50 cent Canadian. So for those who bought in the past sort of 12 months, it's been a fantastic ride. But if you're a long-term shareholder, you're probably down quite a bit. So what are your main learnings from the journey with Adventus?
Well, if I look back, is there anything I would have changed? And I think the only thing I would have changed is spend a little bit less on exploration on some of the porphyry assets, in particular Pichuli. That would have saved a few $1,000,000, but that's about it. We went through the Lassonde curve from start to finish, so I truly know what that valley of death is, and it is a valley of death. I went through multiple presidents, 3 through the process, multiple potential impeachments, a new law to permit consultation that was ultimately challenged. We're the first group ever in Ecuador to properly have gone through a community consultation process for a natural resources project with a vote from the communities. We had to go through the start of the Ukraine-Russia war, exactly in a key time where shareholders were looking, or some of our shareholders were looking to sell and not build. We went through a lot. It was not a straight line up like some of our great peers, like Adriatic Resources or Silvercrest. Everything they did was perfect. They didn't, have a lot of these external factors against them, and fantastic outcome. And through all of this, tumultuous, backdrop, we lost some investors. Investors were not patient enough, or they did not know enough, or they felt uncomfortable about what was going, let's say, with the political backdrop or the permitting backdrop. And liquidity got squeezed out of the market over the last few years with what's been going on. And so we left ourselves, we found ourselves in a position where equity cost of capital was extremely high, where we were potentially diluting our shareholders by 100% to build this mine. Hence the decision to go the M&A route. So it's not exactly the share price outcome that we wanted. We sold for a price that we did our IPO. But I think the process, the decision making along the way was the right ones. We stuck through it through thick and thin. I'm leaving this company, I think, on very good footing. And that said, you just said it yourself. In the last 12 months, shareholders could have done very well. Everyone had the opportunity to buy more in the market. And there was plenty of liquidity over a long period of time for people to make money off the stock. So I feel like this was a very important learning step for myself. I've met a lot of great people, a lot of new investors. I've learned how to develop a project. For my first gig, choosing Ecuador, in its kind of development phase of developing permits and legislation, and trying to find a path politically, it was a tough one. But I think going forward, it's going to be fantastic. And I look forward to doing the next one.
What would you say that your main achievements are with Adventus?
Well, when we started Adventus, I was the only employee, and we had a very early stage exploration asset in Newfoundland. The book value of that asset was $900,000. So that's how we started Adventus. To look at where it is now on the sale for $235 million, and the next copper mine to be built, fully permitted today. It's quite a transition. So it was a transition in terms of we took a stab at a significant project, and we moved it all through the Lassonde curve, including project financing and close to 70% complete detail engineering. We moved a team from just myself to about 250 employees, primarily in Ecuador, and we built a brand, I would say, in the market. Our liquidity during 2024 on the venture exchange would have been top 5 of all companies. So that's what I would say legacy is building a proper business, something that had multiple bidders on copper asset, highest grade undeveloped copper asset in the world, best rate of return of any conventional undeveloped copper projects, and built a team around it in a new country that is also a huge asset of Adventus going forward to Silvercorp.
How old are you?
I just turned 40 in May.
So you're one of the few young CEOs in the mining industry. What do you plan on doing next?
I would have to be honest. Last year, it was super tough. It was like down in the dumps with the political backdrop in Ecuador. Potential significant delay to the consultation process because of the appeal to the Constitutional Court. Extremely difficult markets. We had 2 called failed transactions prior to the merger with Luminex. We were out of money. It was just a huge weight on my shoulders. 2024 has been a phenomenal year. We in January started with our tailings permit, our environmental permit. We closed the Luminex transaction. We had very strong momentum going into PDAC with the president of Ecuador being there, with the investment protection agreement on Condor. Then the interest in our process was very strong, as I mentioned, and I think we had a phenomenal result as doing a merger or sale to Silvercorp. Couldn't have asked for a better year, and when I can announce progress like this or show progress like this gives me energy as a CEO. It gets me excited. So I'm leaving Silvercorp / Adventus here in a good mind space with a lot of energy to try to do this again. I've been making a list of opportunities that I find interesting. It's not a long list, but there's several ideas on there. And I'm now doing the solicitation, investigating these ideas a little bit more, and seeing if there's a good fit. It may take a year for any of these deals to fall out. It doesn't happen very quickly. There's no guarantee, and these are really good ideas. And if I happen to have the opportunity to take any of these on as CEO, which is the plan, in I think a very constructive market for commodities going forward, I'm not going to sit around at a beach for 4 months. So long story short is I'm looking to do an Adventus 2, hopefully this time taking all the knowledge and experience I learned from Adventus 1 and putting it towards a huge success that makes people a lot of money. And I'm looking to do that over the second half of the year here, and hope to be able to announce something during that time period and go from there.
In terms of commodities, will it be similar to the same type of commodities as with Adventus? Copper, gold, perhaps some other base metals?
For those that remember Adventus at the beginning, it was Adventus Zinc Corporation. We were trying to build a significant zinc business. Zinc is very difficult. Any metal, I would say, smaller than copper, gold and copper, has its challenges. You just don't have the depth of investors to start with. That's the key thing. But it's not only equity investors. It goes towards off-takers. It goes towards potential acquirers. That's a key thing. Debt financiers, etc. The markets are just not as transparent across the board. You don't have as many options. if you have a world-class project in any commodity, you're likely to be able to move it forward. But if you're talking to minor metals or minerals, you have to have a top quartile project or you're dead on arrival, unless you want to play the exploration game. That's just my perspective. I've seen it trying to do zinc. I've seen it trying to do nickel. So the long story short is my focus would be copper, gold, ideally both of them together. Copper, maybe gold, and perhaps one of the minor metals, but it has to be truly a top quartile project.
With your potential alternatives, how far advanced would you say? It seems relatively advanced, at least that's some of the alternatives from what I hear.
None of them are past kind of the first phase. So some of them might have done a site visit, just desktop due diligence, counterparty that I perhaps could work with, an opportunity on a surface that I like. No term sheets, nothing from a legal perspective per se. Just trying to see what could work and who I could work with. I think it will take a few more months to advance the list to kind of a short list, and then be in kind of the cylinder of a deal.
But it sounds like at least you would like to prefer to come in as CEO of a development producing company?
I'm interested in a junior producer that I can use as a platform to grow a business, or exploration to developer. I think the key criteria here, and it is different than Adventus, is El Domo. This is prior to the Luminex transaction, but El Domo maybe has a chance as a standalone asset to be $1 billion company once in production when copper is $5, $6, $7 a pound. But it was a little bit too small for the overall markets. We never got to a market cap threshold to tap into the larger resource funds in the mining business, or any ETFs. We were always we were for some time on the cusp, but that was limiting in terms of our ability to re-rate as a developer and to raise ultimately the amount of equity we needed at a good cost of capital. So any of these new opportunities I'm looking at, whether it be exploration or a producer, has to have the ability to re-rate in a reasonable way to $1 billion market cap or more. So looking for something a little bit more sizable in terms of development, or if I go exploration-wise, has to have an exploration target that has a reasonable shot at being a project with an NPV well over $1 billion.
That sounds like a good target. I mean, if you're going to dedicate 5 years of your time, you definitely want to have something that is sizable enough to make it worth it.
El Domo, we raised about $200 million of equity Canadian. We did $235 million of project financing. We built a team. We did everything I mentioned. It's just as much work as if we were doing a project 2 or 3 times the size. It was just more difficult because it was smaller in a more challenging jurisdiction from a global perspective.
So where do you envision yourself in 5 years?
Well, if I go the exploration development route with a larger asset, as I outlined, probably be able to announce a sale of such asset. Unless everything aligns and the best route is building, it likely would be an exit on a sale. If it was a junior producer, I would look to take advantage of building up a significant polymetallic business, ideally with some smaller copper mines in the Americas, which I think is the best opportunity in the market, and have the chance to build the next junior going to mid-tier base metal or polymetallic miner, and just keep on going from there. So very different paths, but both of those are interesting. Both the exploration development and the junior production are of interest to me.